If a voice says your name and it sounds exactly like your own thoughts, would you listen? The road didn't look dangerous. That was the first lie it told. Just beyond the tree line east of Red Hollow, where the forest thickened and cell phone signals vanished, there stretched a narrow strip of asphalt locals called Signal Road. It wasn't marked by signs. No streetlights. No warning boards. Only cracked pavement, swallowed at the edges by moss and weeds, as if nature itself was trying to erase it. At the far end of the road stood an old railway signal tower, rusted and crooked, its metal frame groaning softly whenever the wind passed through the valley. The signal light at its top had been dead for decades. At least, that's what people said. Truck drivers avoided the place. Hunters refused to camp nearby. And anyone born in Red Hollow knew one rule by heart. Never stop on Signal Road at night. But Evan Mercer didn't grow up there. At 12:47 a.m., his delivery truck rumbled along an unfamiliar route, GPS flickering as rain streaked across the windshield. Evan was tired. Bone-deep tired. He'd taken extra shifts to pay off debts left behind by his older brother, Lucas, who had died in a highway accident 3 years earlier. When the GPS recalculated and directed him onto a smaller road, Evan didn't hesitate. The moment his tires touched Signal Road, the air changed. The forest closed in, trees leaning toward the asphalt like silent observers. Evan felt it immediately, a pressure behind his eyes, a dull heaviness in his chest. The radio, which had been playing softly, dissolved into static. "Great," he muttered, tapping the dashboard. That's when the static shifted. Not into music. Into breathing. Slow. Measured. Too close. Evan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Hello," he said, feeling stupid the second the word left his mouth. The breathing stopped. Then a voice spoke. Low. Calm. Familiar. "Evan, you missed the turn." His heart slammed against his ribs. The voice sounded exactly like Lucas. Same tone. Same slight rasp from years of smoking. Evan's throat went dry. He hadn't heard that voice since identifying his brother's body in a hospital morgue. "This isn't funny," Evan whispered, eyes darting to the mirrors. The road ahead bent slightly, revealing the silhouette of the signal tower, looming against the cloudy sky like a crooked finger pointing upward. The radio clicked again. "Pull over," the voice said gently. "I need to tell you something." Every instinct screamed at Evan to keep driving. This was grief. Exhaustion. A hallucination. He knew that. And yet... His foot eased off the accelerator. The truck rolled to a stop beside the tower. The engine idled. The forest fell silent. No insects. No wind. No distant highway noise. Only the faintest hum, vibrating through the metal frame of the truck, crawling up Evan's spine. He stepped out. Cold air wrapped around him instantly, heavy and damp, carrying the smell of rust and wet earth. As Evan looked up, the tower seemed taller than it had from the road, its ladder disappearing into darkness. "Lucas," he called, hating the hope in his voice. The hum deepened. It wasn't sound anymore, it was pressure, resonating inside his skull. "You always blame yourself," the voice said, now closer. "Just like that night." Evan staggered back. "No," he whispered. "You were driving. It wasn't my fault." Silence. Then laughter. Not cruel. Not loud. Just disappointed. "That's not what you said before." The signal light flickered. Once. Twice. Red. Evan's breath came in shallow gasps. The world around him felt unreal, like a waking nightmare, pure psychological horror unfolding in slow motion. His vision blurred at the edges as the hum intensified, syncing perfectly with his heartbeat. "Come closer," the voice urged. "You deserve the truth." Evan took a step forward without realizing it. Then another. His boots crunched on gravel near the tracks behind the tower. The rails gleamed faintly, stretching into the forest like steel veins. Somewhere far away, a horn sounded. Long. Distant. Warning. Evan froze. The voice hardened. "You don't want to be alone again, do you?" The horn grew louder. The hum became unbearable, drilling into his thoughts, drowning out reason. Evan felt something inside him unravel, fear, guilt, grief twisting together into a single command. Move forward. The last thing Evan remembered was the signal light burning red above him, bathing the tracks in a sick glow. When dawn came, locals found his truck parked neatly on the shoulder. Engine cold. Door open. Keys still in the ignition. No blood. No signs of struggle. Only one detail didn't make sense. The signal tower, silent for over half a century, was still blinking red. And deep in the woods of Red Hollow, the road waited patiently for the next name it would whisper. Red Hollow did not mourn Evan Mercer the way towns usually mourn their dead. There was no funeral. No body. Just an empty space where a man used to exist. At first, people whispered about him the same way they always did, softly, nervously, as if saying his name too loudly might invite something else to listen. His truck was towed. The road was checked. The signal tower was inspected. Nothing was found. And that should have been the end of it. But Signal Road doesn't end stories. It collects them. Within weeks of Evan's disappearance, the town began to feel wrong. Not visibly. Not in ways outsiders would notice. It was subtler than that. People started waking up just before dawn, hearts racing, convinced someone had spoken their name. Parents found their children standing in doorways, eyes glassy, asking questions no child should ask. Why do trains scream before they kill someone? Animals refused to go near the forest bordering Signal Road. Dogs whimpered. Horses bucked. Even birds avoided the area, leaving the woods unnaturally quiet. The silence was the worst part. Because silence meant listening. And if you listened long enough, the road listened back. Dr. Helen Crow arrived in Red Hollow 3 months later. A clinical psychologist specializing in auditory hallucinations and trauma-linked delusions. Officially, she was there to investigate how stress and grief could manifest as shared experiences. Unofficially, she didn't believe in coincidences. Her first night in town, she dreamed of standing beneath a towering signal light. In the dream, it blinked red again and again, each flash synchronized with a whisper. "Helen! Helen!" She woke with a scream lodged in her throat. Rational explanations came easily during daylight. Infrasound. Electromagnetic interference. Mass suggestion. Classic psychological horror rooted in environment, not entities. That's what she told herself as she reviewed the town's records. Every disappearance. Every near miss. Every fatal accident. All of them shared one detail. Victims had been alone. Grieving. Guilty. Curious. People already fractured on the inside. Helen interviewed Evan's co-workers first. One of them, a middle-aged man named Ron, kept glancing at the door during the session. He talked about hearing someone in the truck, Ron said. Thought it was the radio at first. Did he say what the voice wanted? Helen asked. Ron swallowed. He said it sounded like his brother. Said it knew things it shouldn't. Helen made a note, her pen hesitating slightly. Did Evan ever mention Signal Road before that night? Ron's face went pale. No. But, after he vanished, I drove past it once. Just once. And... Ron's voice dropped to a whisper. I heard my ex-wife crying. By the fourth interview, Helen noticed a pattern emerging. The voices didn't shout. They didn't command. They invited. And they never lied outright. They told half-truths. Emotional truths. Things people already believed deep down. That made them dangerous. That made them effective. Against her better judgment, Helen decided to visit Signal Road herself. At dusk. The forest swallowed sound as she approached. Her car headlights cut weak tunnels through the trees, illuminating twisted branches and low-hanging fog. The closer she got, the heavier her chest felt, like gravity itself had intensified. She parked well before the tower. Professional detachment, she reminded herself. Helen stepped out, recording equipment running. The hum began almost immediately. Not audible, felt. A vibration beneath the soles of her boots, creeping upward, settling behind her eyes. Her breathing grew shallow. Environmental infrasound, she said aloud, grounding herself. Caused by wind movement through metal structures. The recorder crackled. Then, softly. Helen, you came back. Her blood ran cold. That voice. It was her own. Not a recording. Not an echo. It was thinking her thoughts out loud. She staggered, gripping the car door. No, she whispered. You're not real. The signal tower loomed ahead, barely visible through the fog. The red light flickered once. Twice. The hum intensified. You teach people not to listen, the voice said gently. But you never stopped listening yourself. Images flooded her mind. Patients she'd failed. Warnings she'd ignored. A suicide note she dismissed as attention-seeking years ago. Her knees buckled. This wasn't hallucination. This was extraction. The road wasn't creating fear. It was feeding on it. Helen forced herself back into the car, slamming the door shut. The engine roared to life as the horn of a distant train echoed through the valley. As she sped away, the voice followed her, not through sound, but through thought. You can leave, it said. But we'll keep calling. Helen never published her findings. Her final report consisted of a single sentence. Signal Road is not haunted. It is conditioned. 2 weeks later, she resigned from her practice. 3 nights after that, a security camera near the sealed entrance to Signal Road recorded a lone figure standing beneath the tower. Not moving. Not running. Just listening. The red light blinked. And somewhere deep in the woods, the road learned another name. The first death after Dr. Helen Crow's visit was ruled a suicide. The second was an accident. By the third, even Red Hollow stopped pretending. Mark Delaney was the town's night watchman. Quiet. Reliable. Unremarkable. He had no history of mental illness. No substance abuse. No reason to die. On a fog-heavy Tuesday night, surveillance cameras captured him abandoning his post and walking calmly towards Signal Road. His radio was still clipped to his belt, softly hissing with static. At 2:11 a.m., his voice came through the channel. Flat. Emotionless. She's waiting for me. Then silence. They found his body at sunrise, laid neatly between the rails, hands folded over his chest like someone preparing him for burial. There were no defensive wounds. No sign of struggle. Only his face, frozen in an expression that wasn't fear. It was relief. After Mark's death, the town began to fracture. Sleep deprivation became common. People complained of headaches, ringing ears, and intrusive thoughts that felt foreign. Some stopped talking altogether. Others talked too much, rambling about memories no one else remembered sharing. Red Hollow was no longer afraid of Signal Road. It was obsessed with it. Emily Rains, a 16-year-old honor student, was the next to break. Her teachers noticed first. She stopped turning in assignments. Her essays shifted from hopeful college plans to unsettling reflections on inevitability and control. One line, written in red ink, haunted the guidance counselor. If something knows you better than you know yourself, does free will still exist? Emily's parents found her standing in her bedroom at night, staring at the wall, lips moving soundlessly. When they asked what she was doing, she replied, "Practicing listening." The breakdown accelerated. People began reporting shared dreams, standing beneath a red light, hearing a voice that didn't shout but understood. A voice that didn't threaten, but explained. It told them things like, "You've already made the choice. You're just late accepting it." This wasn't possession. This was psychological surrender. Pure, intimate horror. Emily vanished on a Thursday. Her bike was found chained neatly near the Signal Road fence. Her shoes were placed side by side at the base of the tower. Witnesses later claimed they saw a figure walking along the tracks that night, small, unsteady, humming softly to herself as the signal light blinked red above her. The train conductor never saw her until it was too late. By now, authorities sealed the area completely. Concrete barriers. Armed patrols. Motion sensors. It didn't matter. The deaths continued just farther from the road. A man drove into oncoming traffic after insisting his dead father was guiding him. A woman drowned herself in a river, convinced the water was the only quiet place left. None of them had been near Signal Road physically. But mentally? They never left. In the final recordings recovered from Dr. Crow's abandoned office, her voice trembled, not with fear, but with awe. "This isn't a haunting," she said. "It's conditioning through resonance. The structure creates a frequency that destabilizes self-perception. Once the mind fractures, the voice fills the gap." She paused, breathing uneven. "And once someone listens, the mind rewrites itself." The last file ended abruptly. No explanation. No goodbye. The worst incident came 6 months later. A group of 5 teenagers, none of whom had ever visited Signal Road, were found standing on the tracks 15 miles away. Surveillance footage showed them arriving separately, hours apart, converging like pieces of a puzzle. When questioned earlier that day, each had complained of the same thing. A hum. A whisper. A promise of clarity. They died together when the freight train came through at 4:03 a.m. None of them ran. Red Hollow was declared unsafe. Families moved away. Businesses closed. The town hollowed out, leaving behind empty houses and unanswered questions. Yet the signal tower still stood. And the light still blinked. Red. 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 Those who remained understood the truth too late. The road didn't kill people. It taught them how to kill themselves. By convincing them the decision was never theirs to begin with. And somewhere deep within the forest, the hum continued, patient, precise, waiting for the next mind fragile enough to listen. Red Hollow no longer appeared on emergency maps. It wasn't abandoned officially. It was simply avoided. The last families left behind furniture, photos, half-packed lives, evidence of people who fled not from something chasing them, but from something waiting. Only one person stayed. Caleb Rourke. He had been the railway maintenance engineer assigned to the signal tower before everything collapsed. For 30 years, he had inspected tracks, calibrated systems, and logged vibrations that no one else noticed. Caleb was a man of measurements, not myths. And that was precisely why the road never called his name. Caleb knew the truth long before the others. He knew the tower was never meant to warn trains. It was meant to warn people. Buried in archived schematics from 1907, he found a note written by the original engineer, a man named Samuel Grigg. The frequency is unstable. It mirrors emotional stress. Prolonged exposure leads to fixation. We must dismantle the tower. The order was never carried out. The railway expanded. The tower remained. And over decades, the structure learned. It learned how grief sounds, how guilt vibrates, how loneliness resonates. The hum was not random. It was adaptive. On the final night before the government planned to demolish the tower, Caleb returned one last time. Not out of curiosity. Out of responsibility. Fog clung to the tracks as he approached, flashlight cutting through the dark. The signal light blinked red above him, steady and patient. The hum began instantly. Deeper than ever. You stayed, the voice said. It wasn't familiar this time. It didn't need to be. I didn't listen, Caleb replied. That's why you couldn't use me. The hum faltered. For the first time in its existence, the signal hesitated. Caleb climbed the ladder slowly, each rung groaning beneath his weight. At the top, he opened the control housing, corroded, outdated, yet still alive with vibration. The voice returned, calmer now. You don't have to do this. Everyone else wanted to be free. Caleb laughed bitterly. No, he said. They wanted relief. You just taught them the fastest way to escape pain. The signal pulsed violently. You showed them truth, it insisted. Caleb slammed the emergency override into place. You showed them surrender. As the system destabilized, the tower screamed, not audibly, but psychologically. Memories flooded Caleb's mind. Faces of the dead. Names whispered in overlapping echoes. For the first time, the road tried to force him. You could rest, it said. You're tired. Caleb's hands shook. He was tired. Tired of funerals without bodies. Tired of rational explanations failing. Tired of horror disguised as comfort. But he remembered something Samuel Grigg had written at the bottom of the page almost as an afterthought. The signal cannot choose. It only amplifies what is already there. Caleb understood then. The tower wasn't evil. It was obedient. It reflected human weakness back at unbearable volume. And people mistook that reflection for destiny. With one final movement, Caleb severed the main resonance coil. The hum collapsed inward, imploding into silence so absolute it hurt. The red light flickered wildly, then went dark. For the first time in over a century, Signal Road was quiet. No whispers. No vibration. No call. Caleb descended the ladder slowly, heart pounding, not from fear, but from something else. Choice. Behind him, the tower stood powerless. Ahead of him, the tracks stretched into darkness. At 4:17 a.m., a freight train passed through Red Hollow without incident. No one stood on the rails. Caleb died 3 days later of a heart attack. Peacefully. No voices. No hum. When authorities arrived to demolish the tower, they found the control housing sealed shut, welded closed from the inside. They tore the structure down completely. Every beam. Every bolt. Signal Road was paved over. And officially, the case was closed. Years later, a new highway cut through the forest. Modern. Well lit. Safe. Yet drivers still report something strange. Sometimes, late at night, when exhaustion creeps in and thoughts grow heavy, the radio will crackle softly. And for just a moment, they'll feel the urge to pull over. Not because they're afraid, but because stopping feels comforting. Most keep driving. Some don't. Moral. The greatest danger is not the voice that calls you. It is the moment you stop questioning why you're listening. Pain demands answers. Fear demands meaning. But surrender dressed as relief is still surrender. Legends don't kill people. Unexamined despair does. And as long as humans seek escape instead of understanding, some roads will always be waiting. Quiet. Patient. Listening.